Marvel recently revealed its upcoming projects. They did this at the latest San Diego Comic-Con. They showed us the different shows and movies that are going to be coming out in Phase 5 and 6 of the MCU. One of those announced projects was a brand new series that I'm kind of excited about. It's featuring Daredevil, from the actual Matt Murdock Daredevil from the Netflix series, still starring Charlie Cox and all the characters from those, and Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. So it's kind of bringing those characters back from that show, from that series on Netflix. This is going to be called Daredevil Born Again, and it's essentially a continuation of that series, but it's also now officially canon to the MCU. I'm very excited to see this, and when I heard about this, I immediately thought about what it would be like if all the characters from that, what's called the Defenders Saga on Netflix, started popping up in the MCU as well. That's why today I'm going to be answering the question in the title of this video: should the Defenders be reunited in the MCU? So for those of you that may not know or even understand what I'm talking about, the Defenders Saga was a series of Netflix shows that were all interconnected in a similar way to what the MCU did with all their movies like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and Hulk, how they brought them all together for the movie The Avengers. This was something similar, but with lower level heroes like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, who are all more like street level kind of characters. And they were these shows were exclusive to Netflix. And then they did a series, I think it was only 8 episodes though, and they only had 1 season of it, called The Defenders, where it brought all these characters together. And the thing I liked about that show the most was how it brought all these characters together. They all had a common enemy and were brought together to fight the group known as the Hand. Iron Fist was the sworn enemy of the Hand when he was given those powers. That was his whole thing, was he was sworn to protect the world from the Hand and defeat the Hand. Daredevil was brought into this through other reasons, and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage kind of all were witnesses to different things going on that had to do with the Hand. And I like how they brought them together. And now that we're starting to see the characters, at least from the Daredevil series, like Daredevil and Kingpin, showing up in the MCU, I kind of want to now see these other characters pop up as well. Now, I don't necessarily think we should get like a new season of Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or anything like that. They don't necessarily need to go that route with it for like a Disney Plus series, but I think it would be cool to see a sort of another series or another season of the Defenders show. And what I think Marvel could do with this, and maybe they're planning this, maybe they're not, I don't know. This is all just speculation on my part because I don't have the insider knowledge that a lot of other things or a lot of other people might have. But I think it would be cool to see if they make a Defenders series that sort of picks up with all of these characters finally brought back together in the MCU, but also connects to the MCU by using some of the characters we've seen in the MCU on some of these Disney Plus series to join the group, the Defenders. I think that would be really interesting. Like, let's say you get the original 4 Defenders on this group, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, but then say, like, Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson join the group because they're more street-based characters. Or Spider-Man joins the group. Hawkeye and or Kate Bishop would join the group. We've already seen them interact with Kingpin. And I think Kingpin could be the villain for this group, or even this could be the group of heroes that fights the Thunderbolts, which was also an announced, I guess it's a movie that's going to be coming out. I think that would be an interesting concept, and it would really show that not only is Marvel using its former properties from other, like streaming services like Netflix and things like that, and the shows that and characters that they have acquired from Netflix, and crossing them over into the MCU. This would be an interesting way to go. And I think what they could do with this is have the Defenders be a sort of, not necessarily, it could even be a movie, I guess, but it could be a nice crossover for all the lower level Disney Plus characters that I mentioned. They could have their own show where they come together to fight a common threat, like, say, Kingpin or the Thunderbolts, or just this new group of villains or whatever. So you could add other characters to the group known as the Defenders, and I think that would be very similar to what they did with the Avengers, without taking away from the overall story of the Avengers, because really, if you think about it, any character that's in the MCU can technically be considered an Avenger, because eventually that these Avengers, or that all these characters from the MCU are going to come together to fight some intergalactic threat like we see with Kang or whatever else is yet to come in the MCU. So anybody really could be considered an Avenger, like all the characters from Avengers Endgame, even the Guardians of the Galaxy, even though they were a separate group, are known as are part of the Avengers now. And I think they could do that here as well by first starting these off as this specific group is known as the Defenders. They're Earth's mightiest heroes now, or they at least protect New York, or the areas surrounding New York and things like that. Like maybe get Kamala Khan in there protecting New Jersey or Jersey City or whatever. These more grounded heroes could be known as the Defenders, and then you have your Avengers as the overall thing, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Because we've already kind of seen that with these different sort of like factions and groups in the MCU. So I think this would be a cool way to sort of bring certain characters together without the need for a huge Avengers level movie just yet, but having a Defenders movie or a Defenders series featuring a few of these characters that we've gotten to see, not just on the Netflix shows like Daredevil and Luke Cage, but also Miss Marvel or Hawkeye and Kate Bishop and all of those people. And it'd be a nice tie-in between this is what we did before. You can go check these out on Disney Plus now, these Netflix shows, because they're on Disney Plus now. And here's the characters we've been currently working on with our version, or with our shows on Disney Plus. And now these characters are coming together. I think that would be really interesting to see. And I'd love to kind of see Marvel do that. I don't know exactly how they would do it, but we'd have to have like these characters like Luke Cage and all them popping up back in the MCU. Like maybe you could do that since the new Daredevil series is going to be 18 episodes. Like maybe that's where they could do it. You see Luke Cage and Jessica Jones start popping up. I think Kingpin makes a perfect villain for this too, like I said, because we've already seen him pop up in Hawkeye. So we're going to be seeing more of him in the future as well. And I think Kingpin makes the perfect villain for like a group of characters to have to face, especially if he runs these crime organizations and everything else that might affect each of them in some way or another. And now with Sam Wilson being Captain America and everything else, I think that would be a nice tie-in. I don't exactly know if the Defenders in the comics were only these original 4 characters or if they had other characters involved, but I think that would be a unique way to introduce the Defenders characters from that saga on Netflix into the MCU without interrupting or taking away from the characters they're already building up. And then they can have this big culmination series or movie about the newly formed faction of the Defenders somewhere later down the road. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Would you like to see the Defenders reunited in the MCU, and how would you like to see that play out if it were to happen? Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more Marvel-related content. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.
Subscribe.